Hello there, my name is Daskiel, and I've been playing Final Fantasy for a few months now, mostly casual, and welcome to the interview.
Hello and welcome everyone to an MMO anthropology interview. I'm here with Daskiel in Final Fantasy Online of Final Fantasy XIV. And hello Daskiel, can you tell us a little bit about how you came to get your character name?
That's been a name that has been accompanying me for quite a while, I think. A good 5 or 6 years by that point. It's very
Hmm.
much my standard handle I use anywhere as a netizen.
Hmm. Well, how did you come across it?
It just came to me one day and it's been sticking since then. Before that, I had a few others I've been using, but those have been falling out of favor so far.
Oh, okay. Oh, your little, your little dragon critter has landed on your shoulder.
Oh yeah, it's one of the few mounts that has a little mind of its own that can perch on his shoulder sometimes. It puffs a little fireball.
Oh, that's kind of neat. Like, could you tell us a little bit about your character, like what sort of class that you're playing, and like the outfit that you've chosen?
Of course, the outfit is a reward you will get at some point in an expansion.
Hmm.
I will not tell any specifics because I don't
Okay.
like to spoil people.
Ah, there's spoilers in it. Okay, I understand.
And I can quickly show you, or I cannot, because we're not in a major city, but it doesn't matter.
Hmm.
But yes, I'm a red mage,
Hmm.
which is a combination of black and white magic. Mostly name. There's not many specific healing you get as a red mage. And healing numbers are quite low compared to a real healer. But for emergency, it's nice. I also have a revival, which is quite a late unlock for that class. Also class, you cannot play in the free trial because it comes off in one of the expansions. But it's quite fun. It's a mix of short time caster with a little mechanic to it. Most casts are around 2 seconds, and you get a buff that is called dual cast, which allows you to cast a second spell that would take between 5 and 7 seconds instantly.
Hmm.
So you start off with a combination with a 2 second spell and then throw a stronger one that you would cast for several seconds instantly right after. Some very good AoE capabilities, and it also has melee combos.
Hmm. Did these abilities lead into your decision in why you chose to specialize in this particular class?
Yes, I quite enjoy the mechanics of it. From the other DPS classes that I've played, this one is my favorite. With closely behind Dancer and Samurai, I would say.
Hmm. And are both of those also DPS classes?
Yes.
So would you say that you
Dancer
primarily?
is a DPS that specializes on buffing itself and one ally, and Samurai is just high numbers.
Mhm.
It's not a lot of utility, it's just raw damage.
Right. So would you say that you primarily play DPS classes in that case?
Yes, for
Okay.
now. I'm
Okay.
mostly playing for the story,
Ah.
and tanking and healing is quite a responsibility I don't pick up quite yet.
Oh, okay. I understand. Well, I mean, like, so what would you tell people about the story in Final Fantasy then? Because you just mentioned that you're playing for the story.
I have to say, the story is amazingly well written.
Okay.
And while it's not grimdark, it has some quite surprising dark moments.
Ooh. Are you finding that, like, compelling, then?
Uh, it's very maturely written. It feels like characters are actual people and not just two-dimensional or less.
Okay. So, I'm noticing one of the things that I do ask people about is when I bring people out to interview, I do ask them to bring me to a place in the virtual world because virtual worlds are one of the things that make MMOs. You know, that they're spaces that people exist in, and I asked you to bring me out to this place, a more Dona. And when we look into the background, there's this big like explosion of white crystals, and there seems to be like this wreckage and etc. Can you tell me a little bit about why you chose this particular location and what it is and etc.
It's very aesthetically pleasing for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we have fair weather, which is not a preferred one for this place. It's one called Gloom, I think, which has a lovely purple sheen. Uh, as for the crystals, the large one in the background you can see is called the Crystal Tower. It's something, it's called an alliance raid, or also known as a 24-man party, which includes 3 smaller parties, not just one big one. As for the wreck in the background, you can see a very lore important dragon wrapped around it, which is revealed at some point in the Vision of the Past that it was a Garland airship at some point, and the dragon brought it down.
Ah, okay.
Very much a big dreadnought class thing.
And okay, so getting back to some of the commentary about like the story and when I was asking about you mostly playing DPS classes right now, I'm wondering what is your MMO and video game playing experience? Like, what other MMOs have you played, and do you play, and how would you compare them to a Final Fantasy?
Of course, at some point, I played the MMO, World of Warcraft. That was my first step into MMO games as a whole. Started around
Mm-hmm.
Lich King when the older raid came out, somewhere around then. I've played it on and off. I like it, but it doesn't quite capture me for a long term. Uh, MMO as a whole has the big grinding for materials and crafting and everything, and it feels much lighter than Final Fantasies from what I've
Mm-hmm.
seen so far. Uh, other MMOs I've played, there was one that I don't find anymore. It was about a steampunk world where you could switch between 3 weapons at will,
Mm-hmm.
like a rock, paper, scissors thing.
Mm.
You would use dual weapons against fast enemies, a two-handed weapon against big tanky enemies, etc. And I've played some Neverwinter Online.
Mm-hmm.
But for
So,
Final Fantasy, it's the
mhm.
mix of beautiful aesthetics,
Oh yeah.
being a decade-long Final Fantasy fan, and again, the story writing is very capturing.
Hmm. So you said that you've been playing Final Fantasy XIV online for about 3 months?
Yes, I've been playing about a month on the free trial version,
Mm-hmm.
which I was very happy to find they now include everything up to level 60, minus some social downsides, which I
Okay.
understand, because reasons of botting and everything.
Right, and to stop spammers and gold sellers, I assume.
Yes, like
Okay.
you can't join a party, you can't put items on the market board or buy from them, which is very sensible. If there's no reason, well, if there's no loss if you get banned. Because
Mm.
you're just putting an email address, you can make them to the millions.
Mm-hmm.
I say that's a very reasonable point to include in the free trial,
Mm.
to block this out for security.
Right.
And eventually, I was swayed to buy the game, including Collector's Edition, because of a few fun items like special mounts and fashion gear that you get for free. Well, for free. You buy it in a Collector's Edition, of course it costs more. uh, and mostly because a few classes are locked out of the later expansion Stormblood and Shadowbringers,
Mm-hmm.
like Red Mage or Samurai.
Ah, right. So how often do you play?
I would say at least once a week. In prime times, it's daily, doing daily quests. There's a thing called hunts, which is a list of normal mobs you can kill, and one spawns each week. It gives you X rewards. It's specifically just for the hunts. But unlike other MMOs, World of Warcraft specifically, those mobs respawn every 5 seconds once they're killed.
Hmm.
So you don't wait 20 minutes in the same spot with 20 other people to kill a mob.
Well, you're kind of already answering my next question, which is like, what do you do in a normal day in Final Fantasy Online? Do you spend more time by yourself, or do you seek out group activities?
I'm mostly, well, for right now, mostly by myself,
Mm-hmm.
playing through the storyline.
Mm-hmm.
Again, good writing, some amazing and well-known voice actors even. For those that have played Final Fantasy XII, it's the voice actor of Bash in the game.
Huh. Uh, would you say that Final Fantasy encourages either type of play, like solo or group?
Yes, it's very easy to group up and do main story and side quests, and it's also very viable to play on your
Mm-hmm.
own. Even with DPS classes, escort missions feel pretty
Mm-hmm.
easy. You're not feeling pressure to switch over to a healing or a tank class just to finish the mission because there's some NPC along with you.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, yeah, party-wise, well, multiplayer content, dungeons and trials are quite the fun parts too. There's very unique mechanics. Some dungeons even include pure and strategy puzzles.
Okay. So, how did you learn to play the mechanics of your class? Did the game teach you, or did you learn from other people, or do you consult like videos or websites? Like where do you go to learn?
Most of it came to me naturally, just looking at the different potencies and casting times and such.
Mm-hmm.
I like to figure things out on my own, but there's some very good guides on YouTube and the Final Fantasy XIV subreddit that I visit often too.
Oh, okay. So how would you say that you use your time playing MMOs differently than you do, say, watching TV, movies, or reading, like books?
Uh, I have to say, I'm a big fan of Ludo narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Working for something to unlock something in the story.
Hmm.
Putting in hours to get a reward out of it by cutscene and story and lore. This, that's one thing that I find unique with games in general. Just a TV or a book doesn't tell you you're not good enough to see the next episode. You have to work for it.
So,
The
like,
little
not
challenge is quite enticing to me.
so you're less likely to go to something that's non-interactive.
Yes.
Hmm. Okay. Um, and well, back to MMOs and stuff like that. What would you say the temperature of the community in Final Fantasy is? How do other people behave?
I have to say, so far I've only experienced one bit player in several months of playing.
Hmm.
Maybe it was out of jest joke. Either way, he made a few party members leave in a dungeon. I don't want to get too into it.
Well, that's
All in
fine.
all, the players of Final Fantasy XIV are very welcoming and nice to newcomers too.
Hmm.
Like
So,
joking around with random people, giving them advice. If somebody asks a question, there's at least 2 or 3 people that give an answer to try and help. It's very refreshing to see in an MMO.
oh yeah, so I mean, like, I'm really curious. So, I mean, like, I've been playing Final Fantasy on and off for a few years now, but I know that there's some terminology for new players, and then it has to do with the icon that appears next to their name, the little, like, the green
Ah,
symbol,
yes,
the
the sprout
sprout.
status.
Yes, I think that's a really cute little jargon term. Uh, that's really lovely, and I kind of like that as like a term that comes along with them. It's adorable, and I'd really like for people watching this interview to come away with that if they've never played Final Fantasy. So, and for anybody watching, the next question is: do you have a guild or community in Final Fantasy?
Yes,
Who are
I'm
they?
part of the casual adventure team, the Cats.
Mm-hmm. And do you talk to them outside of Final Fantasy?
Oh, of course, being active in the Discord, and just joking around, talking about the story. I much prefer the very laid-back guilds and groups over very efficiency-focused ones.
Mm-hmm. And so, like, just like their name, they're pretty casual. So, and also like, so what sort of amenities are available inside of Final Fantasy for guilds? Like, what do they do for you? Or like, not only are they're not just called guilds in Final Fantasy, they're called free companies, right?
Yes,
That's the
free
jargon term.
company. Not only can it provide you with certain buffs, like right now, there's 2 buffs active. One's called Back on Your Feet, which reduces resurrection fatigue,
Mm-hmm.
and one increases random food buffs for like I think 50% longer.
Oh, right.
So
So that
there's buffs the free company leaders can buy and give out for the whole
Mhm.
free company. There's also perks of housing, which the housing market is a very hot topic in Final Fantasy XIV. There's a lot of issues with the system because it's not instant space per player. They tried it at some point and it wrecked the servers.
Mm.
So there's only a limited number of slots for houses at all times. And with free company, it gives you a bonus of you can share workstations in the housing, which give you buffs to the crafter roles. And there's the whole exploration thing, which unlock certain specialty items and resources you can get for crafting. And you can just buy an apartment in there, which you can do also without a free company. There's housing slots, and there's just, I think, several hundred apartments in each server. And with a company house, you can just buy an apartment inside the house instead of a big apartment building in the same place.
Hmm. All right, so that leads me to my very last question, and that is, what is your favorite memory or experience from playing in an MMO? And it doesn't have to be in Final Fantasy.
It doesn't have to be, but it actually is.
Hmm, that's fine.
Of course, the game has a little bit of a language filter, which is optional. And there's quite a fun place called Hawk Manor.
Hmm.
Not like the animal, different
Hawkeye,
spelling.
yeah.
Yeah.
Haukke, right? Am I correct? Okay.
Family name and all that. And there's several enemies of a succubus type.
Yep.
And the first time I was playing it, there's been a lot of jokes on the lines of "Don't suck, it's the job of the enemies here," and things like that. As I said, overall, the people in Final Fantasy are very welcoming and warm.
Right.
As someone that has also played a lot of competitive games like MOBA and shooters, it's very refreshing not to see all the amounts of salt in chat.
Well, that's it. Thank you so much for coming along and your time, Daskiel. And of course, I've been your host, Amarist, and this has been another MMO Anthropology interview. Thanks everyone for coming along, and good night and good dreams, everyone. That's it.
Do you play online games? Do you have Skype? Then we'd love to interview you on Massive Online Anthropology. Join the fascinating thousands who've spoken about their online gaming experience and be the envy of all your friends. Or at least get the MMO Anthropology Geek Merit Badge. Sorry, no t-shirt. See you then!